Peter Sellers told the world there is no me, and people laughed. Dean Martin did the opposite. He gave the world a me so convincing, so smooth, so effortlessly cool that America stopped asking questions. Golden Globe wins, sold out Vegas, the Rat Pack, the smirk, the drink in his hand. The whole country believing they knew him. And that's the problem. Because if you strip away the tuxedo, the drunk act, the lazy charm, the perfect timing, you don't find the same man. You find someone almost nobody clocked in real time. A shy, guarded immigrant kid who learned early that being himself got him punished and being someone else got him paid. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. People love the story that Dean Martin lived like a party and died like a legend. That version is for people who confuse a public image with a private life. The truth is darker and way more interesting. Because the king of cool wasn't cool. He was controlled, calculated, and when the one thing he couldn't control finally arrived, the response wasn't glamorous. It was unsettling. And the people closest to him didn't know what to do with it. Stay with me, because the real twist isn't he drank. It's what he used that drinking image to hide, and what happened the moment the mask stopped working. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. He wasn't born Dean Martin. He was born Dino Paul Crosetti, a working-class Italian kid in Ohio, speaking broken English, getting bullied for his accent, and carrying the kind of quiet embarrassment that teaches you one lesson fast: blend in or get eaten. He stammered as a boy. He was shy, not introvert mysterious, shy like you can feel him searching for the safest version of himself in every room. So he quits school early, works hard jobs, bounces through whatever makes money. Some stories say he ran liquor during Prohibition. Some say he boxed under a nickname. The details change depending on who's telling it, but the pattern doesn't. Young Dino kept reinventing himself because in his world, stability was for people who weren't fighting to be taken seriously. Then he finds the one place reinvention isn't weird, it's celebrated. Nightclubs, lounges, smoke, suits, backroom energy. A world where nobody cares who you really are as long as the performance lands. He starts singing wherever he can. Legal, illegal, doesn't matter. He copies the crooners, learns the rhythm, learns how to make an audience lean in. And somewhere in that era, he gets the lesson that will define everything. You can be nervous inside as long as you look relaxed outside. That's the seed of cool, not confidence, camouflage. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. Then comes Jerry Lewis. This is where the myth usually starts. Martin and Lewis, the golden duo, the classic contrast. The loud kid and the smooth guy, the chaos and the calm. But what people miss is that the dynamic didn't just make them famous. It locked Dean into a role. They bomb at first, bad, humiliating, and then they panic, improvise, and something clicks so hard it becomes history. Jerry flails, Dean sings. Jerry interrupts, Dean reacts. The audience loses it. And suddenly, Dean Martin is the straight man, the anchor, the cooler one, the adult next to a man-child. It prints money. It also quietly traps him because audiences don't want Dean Martin evolving. They want him consistent. They want him to be the same smooth face forever. Meanwhile, Jerry gets called the genius, the main event, the engine. And Dean, who spent his entire childhood fighting to not be dismissed, starts tasting that old familiar poison again. Being undervalued, being reduced, being treated like the accessory. You can hear it in the way the story gets told. Jerry Lewis created it. Dean was just there. That does something to a man who already had to build cool just to survive. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. So the split happens. It gets framed like ego, like jealousy, like two stars clashing. But psychologically, it reads like something else. Dean Martin trying to get his name back, trying to become a full person instead of half of a duo. And here's the risk: when you leave the role that made you famous, the world usually punishes you. Dean didn't just survive it, he did the most insulting thing possible. He became bigger. Rat Pack, Vegas, movies, television, not as Jerry's partner, as Dean Martin, the definitive image of American cool. And this is where the identity reversal becomes your whole video. Because the version of Dean Martin that conquered America, that guy was manufactured carefully, on purpose, with precision. The drinking, the looseness, the I'm badly trying energy, the womanizing jokes, the half slurred delivery. It was a character, a role, a shield. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. Let's talk about the drink, because this is the detail that makes people sit up. Dean Martin becomes famous as America's favorite drunk. He held a glass on stage like it was part of his skeleton. He leaned into the reputation so hard it became folklore. But people around him kept saying the same thing for years. A lot of the time, it wasn't booze, it was apple juice. And even when it was alcohol, he often wasn't the one going hardest. He was the one ending early. Because the drunk Dean wasn't proof he was falling apart. It was proof he was acting. And the irony is brutal. He played the part so perfectly that the public stopped believing he could be anything else. So every time he was quiet, private, or restrained, people didn't read it as personality. They read it as hangover. They turned a human being into a joke that never had to make sense. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. And the showbiz machine loved it. Because the persona was profitable. The Rat Pack years are remembered like non-stop champagne and perfect suits. And sure, the nights were real. But the legend got exaggerated into something cartoonish. Because America loves a party it doesn't have to pay for. Offstage, Dean wasn't some manic attention addict. He wasn't even the loudest in the room half the time. He likes the controlled environment. Familiar people, familiar routines, the same jokes, the same rooms, the same exits. He loved his kids. He had 8. And everyone who's ever been around real cool knows the secret. Cool isn't loud. Cool isn't loud. It's contained. That's why it sells. Because it looks like freedom. But most of the time, it's discipline with good lighting. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. So what was real? One vice, not the drinking, the smoking. The cigarettes were not a prop. And this matters because it sets up the punch later. The fatal illness isn't random. It's the bill coming due. But before that bill arrives, life hits him with something worse than cancer. Something that blows up the entire legend. His son, Dean Paul Martin. Dino. Talented, charismatic. The one that made people say, he's really his father's son. Actor, singer, athlete, fighter pilot. And then one day he goes up on a training mission and doesn't come back. The plane disappears into weather. The search begins. Days of hope. That special kind of denial families live inside when they can't accept the obvious. And then the wreckage is found in the mountains. No survivors. And here's the part that my video is really about. What happens to a man whose whole identity is built on never looking shaken when his life actually gets shattered? Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. People expected the king of cool to handle it like a movie scene. A stoic tear, a clean coat, a graceful return to the stage. That's not what happened. Everyone close to him noticed the same change. Not sad, not older, different. Like something inside him shut off. And this is where the identity reversal lands. The world thought Dean's persona was proof he didn't take life seriously. But that persona was what he used to keep life from touching him too hard. And grief doesn't care about your persona. Grief walks straight through it. After his son died, the stage started to look less like freedom and more like punishment. Big crowds didn't revive him, they drained him. The Rat Pack nostalgia didn't feel like fun, it felt like a ghost story. And once you see it through that lens, the drunk act stops being funny, it becomes survival. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. Now the illness arrives. Doctors tell him that he has lung cancer, and the family reacts like you'd expect. Panic, bargaining, do the surgery, please, fight. And Dean's response is the line that either makes people angry or makes them finally understand him. He refuses, not because he's clueless, not because he doesn't have money, not because he didn't believe in medicine. Because this is a man who spent decades controlling the narrative, controlling the mood, controlling the image, and now life is offering him a reality he can't script. Surgery means hospitals, weakness, time, waiting, uncertainty. It means being watched while not performing. It means being a human being in public without the armor. And Dean Martin did not build his entire life around being watched without armor. So he does the most Dean Martin thing possible. He leaves the stage. He withdraws. He goes quiet. He stops letting the world see him. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. And you can argue about whether that's tragic or stubborn or unfair to the people who loved him. It's probably all three. Because the public thinks celebrities are public property. But families don't live with the legend. They live with the person. And the person behind Dean Martin was never built for the kind of emotional exposure people demand during sickness. He was built for elegance, timing, distance. So when the end comes, it isn't dramatic. It isn't poetic. It's small and private. He dies at home on Christmas Day. And Vegas, the city that helped turn the persona into a religion, dims its lights. A tribute, a curtain call, a final aesthetic gesture. But the truth is, the real Dean Martin had been gone from the public long before the obituary. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. So what's the legend we all had wrong? It's not that he was secretly a saint. It's not that he never drank. It's not that he was fake. It's worse and more human than that. Dean Martin built a character so the world would stop punching the shy kid underneath. He played cool because real wasn't safe. He performed drunk because lonely doesn't sell. He smiled because silence makes people ask questions. And then when life hit him with a pain the character couldn't absorb, the performance collapsed. Not because he was weak, because the performance was never meant to hold that much weight. That's why the story lands. Because it's not really about Dean Martin. It's about what happens when the thing that makes you lovable is also the thing that keeps you unreachable. Because the legend of Dean Martin was his greatest act. So if you grew up thinking Dean Martin was just the guy with the drink and the wink, here's the uncomfortable correction. That was the role, and he played it so well we forgot that there was a person inside it. And if we're honest, we liked it that way, because a legend doesn't demand empathy, a person does. And that's why, we owe Dean Martin an apology. If you want more stories where the legend is the mask and the private cost is the truth, subscribe. Because the people who entertain everyone the best are sometimes the one who don't know how to live as a person at all.